Hello Internet, welcome back to my channel. My name is Abby and this is Abby's Amateur Astronomy. Today I'm going to go over 5 definitions of very basic astronomical objects. Scientists love definitions. Scientists love to be very precise about how they speak in order to avoid confusion and to make sure everyone is talking about the same thing at once. So it's very important that we understand the basic definitions of these common objects. So, definition number 1. A star is defined as any massive self-luminous celestial body of gas that shines by radiation derived from its internal energy resources. Basically what that means is a star is the objects in space that are lit up by the chemical reaction from within, and that chemical reaction is called nuclear fusion. So as a very basic overview, nuclear fusion is when protons become hydrogen, and then hydrogen bonds together to become helium, and helium then becomes a type of beryllium, and that eventually decays into your helium and a couple more protons. Now every time there is a reaction, it gives off a charge. That comes out as energy. And that energy comes in the form of heat and light. So it's what makes stars glow, and it's what makes them very, very hot. The closest star to us is obviously our sun, but outside of our solar system, it's a star called Proxima Centauri, and it is about 4.246 light years away. All stars can be classified into various groups. We use something called the Hertzsprung-Russell diagram. You can see that here. And most of the stars fall along the main sequence cluster on this graph, but there are also exceptions that come in the form of supergiants and dwarfs. So throughout a star's life cycle, the classification can change, but the most common evolution of a star starts out as a main sequence once it's born from a nebula, and it'll eventually turn into a red giant once the hydrogen begins to run out due to the nuclear fusion that we talked about earlier. So if the star is relatively low mass, the red giant will kind of explode, become a planetary nebula, which is a gas cloud, and a white dwarf. And then eventually that white dwarf will burn out and become a black dwarf star. But if that main sequence star has high mass, then the red giant could possibly turn into a supernova and a neutron star. Now, a neutron star will then eventually collapse in on itself and become a black hole. So the difference between a white dwarf and a neutron star is that in general, neutron stars have higher temperatures and they spin faster and have stronger magnetic fields. The length of the lifespan of a star is determined by its mass. So a higher mass star will oftentimes have a shorter life cycle and just burn out quicker. Alright, definition number 2 is what is a planet? Now, this one is controversial, especially in the most recent years. As we know, this definition can exclude some of our beloved space objects, but here is the actual scientific definition. So, a planet is a celestial body that is 1. In orbit around a star, 2. Has sufficient mass for its gravity to overcome rigid body forces, so it assumes hydrostatic equilibrium, which means it's spherical in shape, or as spherical as it can possibly be. And 3, it has cleared the neighborhood around its orbit. So let's talk about the elephant in the room, Pluto. Our beloved Pluto was downgraded in 2006 from a planet to a dwarf planet, and it's because it didn't meet this 3rd criteria. So Pluto does still have some asteroids and rocks and other objects within its orbit. So even though Pluto's not a planet, we still have 8 planets in our solar system. We have Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. But planets don't have to be within our solar system. There are planets outside that are circling other stars, and these are called exoplanets. Planets can come in various shapes and sizes. There's no uniform look that they have to have other than being spherical. So they can either be rocky, like Earth is, or they can be mostly made of gas, like Jupiter or Saturn. Definition number 3. A moon. So what is a moon? A moon is a natural satellite, a solid object in orbit around a planet, a dwarf planet, minor planet, or a trans-Neptunian object. Earth obviously has one moon, and it's called the moon, but planets can have way more than one. Actually, the planet with the most amount of moons in our solar system is Saturn, sitting at a whopping 82. They are generally formed by disks of gas and dust circulating the planets in the early solar system, and then those rings of gas condense due to gravity to form moon. However, our moon is a little bit different. It is most likely formed by a collision with a second Mars-sized object into the Earth that broke off a chunk of the Earth, and that debris collected and formed into the moon as it got caught in Earth's gravity. So we often think about moons looking like the one that we have and having those same characteristics of being barren, being rocky, desolate, but in fact moons are very highly diverse, almost as highly diverse as planets themselves. And they come in all different shapes and sizes. For example, Europa, which is a moon around Jupiter, is thought to be covered in a very deep ocean underneath a thick crust of ice. Actually, this is one of the top contenders for research of life outside of Earth due to its water and possible thermonuclear events at the bottom of the ocean. On the other hand, a different moon around Jupiter is named Io, is the most volcanically active body in the solar system. And one of the most unique moons, I think, is one of Saturn's moons called Titan. Titan actually has its own atmosphere and even some standing bodies of water. Definition number 4 is an asteroid. Asteroids are small, rocky objects that orbit a star and are smaller than planets. Asteroids are made from metals and hard rocks, which is different from comets because comets are generally made of dust and ice. So most are found in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, and they can be classified into various types as well. So there are 3 different types. A C-type, which is a chondrite, consists of mostly clay and silicate rocks. S-type, which is stony, made of silicate materials and nickel iron, and M-type metallic, which is made of just the nickel iron. And the composition of asteroids is related to how far away from the sun it was when it formed. All near-Earth objects, including many asteroids, are closely monitored by NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. Asteroids orbit and change dramatically from gravity of the nearby planet, which is most likely Jupiter or Mars, considering most asteroids are within the asteroid belt, and sometimes when these orbits change, they can put them in the path of different objects, including planets. So the last asteroid impact with Earth was about 66 million years ago, and it did dramatically alter both our geology and biology here on Earth. Most notable, this is the dinosaur extinction. The 5th definition that I'm going to go over today is kind of a 3-for-1. It is the difference between a meteor, meteoroid, and meteorite. First off, meteoroids. They are small rocks in space that could be the size of a pebble, but up to a small asteroid. They are often pieces of an asteroid that were broken off during a collision. So meteors then are when the meteoroids enter a planet's atmosphere and burn up. These are often known as shooting stars. So after the meteoroid has entered the atmosphere and has burned up, and let's say a chunk of it is left and it hits the ground, that chunk is a meteorite. So typically only about 5% of the original object will make it to the ground. Oftentimes that is almost nothing. So far, more than 50,000 meteorites have been found, with 99.8% of them have been from asteroids, presumably from the asteroid belt, and the other 0.2% are either rocks that are from the moon or even Mars. So that was all the information that I wanted to share with you today. It was kind of a quick, short, easy video. As we talk about higher concepts on this channel in maybe more video essay types, we will be using these terms, so it's important that we know the definition of them and understand the characteristics of the objects that we are talking about. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for joining. And hopefully I will see you next week.